No raises again this year. Times are tough. If you don't like it, there's the door. Fabian leaned back in his leather chair, that smug smile spreading across his face like he enjoyed watching us squirm. Around the conference table, my teammates looked defeated. Novali's jaw tightened with anger. Tanner muttered something under his breath that I couldn't catch. Alyssa's eyes filled with tears. She tried to blink away. I forced myself to nod politely, but under the table, my hand clenched so tight my nails dug into my palm. 5 years. 5 years of this same speech, the same excuses, the same crushing disappointment. Budget cuts, Fabian continued, straightening his expensive tie. Companies struggling. We all have to make sacrifices. He said it like he was doing us a favor by keeping us employed. Penny shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Marcelo stared at his hands. The silence felt heavy, suffocating, but Fabian's gaze lingered on me the longest, that mocking smile never leaving his face, like he enjoyed this, like crushing our hopes was his favorite part of the job. I kept my expression neutral, but inside, something cold and calculating started to form. After the meeting, we walked to the break room like zombies. Nobody spoke until Fabian was safely back in his office. 5 years, Penny finally exploded, her voice shaking with frustration. Not a damn raise in 5 years. How are we supposed to live? Marcelo shook his head slowly. He's lying through his teeth. But what can we do? We need these jobs. Novali slammed her coffee mug down harder than necessary. My rent went up again last month. I'm eating pasta for dinner every night. Tanner ran his hands through his hair. My car's falling apart. I can't even afford to fix it properly. They all sounded so broken, so defeated. I just stood there listening, my mind racing while they vented their frustrations. Everyone was focused on their problems, their anger. Nobody noticed me staying quiet. That's when Fabian walked past the break room, laughing into his phone. His voice carried through the thin walls. Can't wait to take the Porsche out this weekend, he said cheerfully. Weather's supposed to be perfect. The break room went dead silent. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Fabian's laugh, his expensive watch, that brand new Porsche he loved bragging about. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through his Instagram. There it was, a photo of him in designer clothes, expensive cufflinks glinting in the light. The caption read, "Hard work pays off. Blessed, success, living my best life." My finger hovered over the screen. Hard work? Whose hard work exactly? The comments were full of people praising him, telling him he deserved it. If only they knew what I knew. If only they could see how he looked at us during those meetings, like we were insects he could step on. I screenshotted the post and saved it to a folder on my phone. I wasn't sure why yet, but something told me I'd need it later. The next photo showed him at an expensive restaurant, champagne glass raised to the camera. Celebrating another successful quarter, the caption said. Successful for who? I whispered to myself in the darkness. Our team had worked overtime for months to make that quarter successful. We'd sacrificed weekends, missed family dinners, pushed ourselves to exhaustion. And Fabian was celebrating alone. The next morning, I walked into the break room and found Zelda and Rowan deep in conversation. The moment they saw me, they stopped talking abruptly. Zelda shot me a guilty look, like a kid caught with their hand in the cookie jar. Rowan suddenly became very interested in stirring his coffee. Morning, I said casually, pouring myself a cup. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Zelda cleared her throat. Oh, hey Michaela, we were just talking about the weather. The weather? In October? When it had been raining for 3 days straight? I studied their faces. Zelda worked in accounting. She had access to financial records, payroll information. Rowan worked in HR. Between the two of them, they probably knew more about our company's money than anyone except Fabian. What were you really talking about? I asked gently. Zelda's face went pale. She glanced at Rowan, who shook his head slightly. Nothing, Zelda said quickly, not meeting my eyes. Really, it was nothing important. Forget it, Rowan added, grabbing his coffee and practically running out of the room. But I couldn't forget it. Their guilty expressions told me everything I needed to know. They knew something. The tension in our team meetings was getting worse. During our weekly review, Tanner finally snapped. This is bullshit, Fabian, he said, throwing his pen down on the table. We're working harder than ever, bringing in more clients, and we can't even get cost of living adjustments? The room went dead quiet. Nobody ever challenged Fabian directly. Fabian's smile turned cold. Watch your tone if you want to keep your job, Tanner. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Tanner's face flushed red, but he didn't say another word. I watched Fabian's expression carefully. There was something calculating about the way he handled the situation. Too smooth, too practiced, like he'd been expecting this conversation and had his response ready. Look, Fabian continued, his voice softer now, more reasonable. I understand everyone's frustrated, but we're all in this together. The company's struggling, and we all have to make sacrifices. Then his eyes found mine across the table. You're not stupid, Michaela. You know how things work. The way he said it made my skin crawl, like we shared some secret understanding, like I was supposed to be grateful for his honesty. I nodded politely, but inside, alarm bells were ringing. That evening, I was working late when I heard quiet crying coming from the supply closet. I found Zelda sitting on a box of printer paper, tears streaming down her face. Zelda? What's wrong? She looked up, startled, and quickly wiped her eyes. Oh, Michaela. I didn't know anyone was still here. I sat down beside her on another box. Are you okay? You seem really upset. She shook her head, fresh tears falling. I shouldn't be telling anyone this. Telling anyone what? Zelda looked around nervously, even though we were alone. It's about the raises. About why we never get them. My heart started beating faster. What about them? I shouldn't, she whispered, wrapping her arms around herself. You don't want to know. Trust me, you don't want to know. But I did want to know. I needed to know. Zelda, I said gently, whatever it is, you can tell me. I won't say anything. She looked at me for a long moment, wrestling with herself. I do want to know, I whispered. Please tell me. Zelda took a shaky breath and looked around one more time to make sure we were alone. The raises were approved, she whispered. Every single year for the past 5 years, the board approved them. The budget was there. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. What? Fabian signed off on them too. Then he redirected the money. Her voice got even quieter. He forged signatures on budget reports, blamed everything on company-wide cuts that never happened. My stomach felt like it was full of ice water. He stole our raises? Zelda nodded miserably. All of it. Every penny that should have gone to you guys over the years, he kept it for himself. His car, his clothes, his fancy dinners, that's where our money went. I thought about his Instagram posts, his bragging, his smug smile during meetings. All of it suddenly made horrible sense. How do you know this? I asked. I process the payroll. I see everything. She grabbed my arm suddenly, panic in her eyes. But you can't tell anyone I told you. Please, Michaela. I could lose my job. I could get in serious trouble. I stared at her, my mind spinning. I won't say anything. But as I walked out of that supply closet, I knew everything had changed. I walked through the office like I was moving underwater. Around me, my teammates were packing up for the day, complaining about their usual problems. Can't afford groceries this week, Novalie was saying to Elise. My landlord's threatening to evict me, Penny added. Tanner was on the phone with a mechanic, arguing about payment plans for his broken car. They kept complaining, kept accepting Fabian's lies, kept believing there was nothing they could do. They sounded defeated, hopeless. I just nodded along, pretending to sympathize. But inside, something had shifted. Something cold and focused had taken root. Fabian thought he was so clever. He thought we were all too stupid or too scared to figure out what he was doing. He thought he could keep stealing from us forever. He had no idea who he had just betrayed. While my teammates wallowed in their frustration, I was already planning. They would keep complaining, keep accepting, keep suffering. I wouldn't. Fabian was about to learn that the quiet ones are often the most dangerous. He had no idea what was coming for him. The next morning, I walked into work with a smile on my face. Good morning, Fabian, I said cheerfully as I passed his office. He looked up, surprised. Usually, I just walked by with a polite nod. Well, good morning, Michaela. You seem in a great mood today. Just grateful to have a job, I replied sweetly, especially in these tough times. During our team meeting, I laughed at his jokes. When he made another comment about budget constraints, I nodded, understanding. You're absolutely right, I said. We all need to be patient and work together. My teammates shot me confused looks. Tanner raised an eyebrow. Novalie looked almost betrayed. But Fabian? Fabian relaxed. His shoulders dropped. His smile became more genuine. He probably thought I was finally falling in line, accepting my place. Perfect. After the meeting, Novali cornered me. What was that about? Since when do you agree with anything he says? I shrugged. He's our boss. Fighting him won't change anything. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. If only she knew what was really going through my mind. Smile, Michaela. Smile until you have enough evidence to bury him. I started staying late every night, but not for the reasons Fabian thought. While he was at home enjoying his stolen money, I was at my desk, carefully going through files. Zelda had started leaving documents on my desk. Old pay stubs, budget reports, financial spreadsheets. She never said anything directly, but I found them every morning, hidden under other paperwork. I photographed everything with my phone, storing the images in a secure folder. Bank records showing Fabian's personal deposits that matched exactly with our missing raises. Forged signatures on budget cuts that never happened. Email chains where he lied to the board about our compensation. The evidence was damning. More damning than I'd hoped. I was so focused on photographing a particularly incriminating spreadsheet that I almost missed the notification that popped up on my computer screen. Unauthorized access alert. Security will be notified. My blood ran cold. The system had detected someone accessing financial files outside normal business hours. I quickly closed everything and shut down my computer, heart pounding. Had Fabian set up monitoring? Did he know what I was doing? I packed up quickly and headed for the exit, trying to look casual. Tomorrow, I'd have to be more careful. The next evening, I was carefully copying files when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Fabian appeared in my doorway, coffee mug in hand, looking relaxed and friendly. Burning the midnight oil again, Michaela? That's real loyalty. I forced a smile and casually moved some papers to cover the documents I'd been photographing. Just trying to get ahead on next week's projects. He walked closer to my desk, and I discreetly slipped a flash drive into my sleeve. I appreciate employees who go the extra mile, he said, leaning against my desk. It doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you, I replied, keeping my voice steady, even though my heart was racing. He leaned closer, lowering his voice conspiratorially. Keep this up, and maybe next year, I'll take special care of you personally. The way he said it made my skin crawl, like I was being offered scraps from his table. That's very kind of you, I managed to say. After he left, I sat there for a moment, hands shaking slightly. Take special care of me? With whose money, Fabian? The money you've been stealing from all of us? But I kept my expression neutral, just in case he was watching. My teammates were getting more frustrated by the day. During lunch, they couldn't stop complaining. Why don't we all just walk out? Novali said angrily. Find jobs somewhere else? Alice shook her head sadly. Nobody's hiring in our field. At least not around here. We're trapped, Tanner muttered. He knows it, and he's using it against us. Penny stirred her soup absently. Maybe things will get better next year. They won't, Marcelo said bitterly. They never do. I sat there listening, sipping my coffee, nodding along with their complaints. They had no idea I was gathering evidence that could change everything. You're being awfully quiet, Michaela, Novali observed. What do you think we should do? I shrugged. Probably nothing we can do except keep working hard and hope things improve. Tanner snorted. Hope? That's your solution? What else is there? I replied, keeping my voice neutral. They looked disappointed in me. They probably thought I'd given up, become another defeated employee, willing to accept whatever scraps Fabian threw our way. If only they knew what I was really thinking. You'll thank me later. All of you will thank me when this is over. Fabian was getting bolder with his bragging. During lunch in the break room, he was showing off photos on his phone to anyone who would listen. Just put a down payment on a beach house, he announced proudly. Should be ready by summer. I watched from across the room as he scrolled through pictures of an expensive property with ocean views. Tanner shot him a disgusted look. Must be nice to afford luxuries while the rest of us can barely pay rent. Fabian shrugged, completely unbothered. Don't hate me for winning, Tanner. Success rewards those who work for it. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. He was literally buying beach houses with money stolen from us, then lecturing us about hard work. While he was distracted by his audience, I discreetly took a photo of his laptop screen, which was open to an expense report, right there in black and white, executive bonus, Q3 performance incentive. The same quarter where he told us there was no money for raises. I saved the photo to my growing collection of evidence. His beach house, his car, his designer clothes, all of it purchased with our stolen wages. But he had no idea I was documenting everything. I decided it was time to make myself more visible to the board. I volunteered to lead our biggest marketing campaign without Fabian's direct oversight. I worked weekends, stayed late every night, and poured everything I had into making it perfect. When the results came in, they were the best in company history. We'd exceeded our targets by 40%, brought in major new clients, and generated more revenue in one quarter than we usually made in 6 months. The board was impressed. They called me into a meeting to congratulate me personally. "Outstanding work, Michaela," the board chairman said. "This campaign exceeded all our expectations." I smiled modestly. "Thank you. I had a great team supporting me." Fabian sat at the end of the table, forcing a smile, but I could see his eye twitching. He hadn't expected me to succeed this dramatically without his guidance. Honestly, another board member said, "You deserve a significant raise for this kind of performance." Perfect. This was exactly what I'd been hoping for. But before I could respond, Fabian jumped in smoothly. "I couldn't agree more. But as you know, the budget is still quite tight. We're still recovering from last year's challenges." I just smiled politely and nodded, like the perfect employee. But inside I was taking notes. After my campaign success, Fabian started watching me more carefully. "You've been awfully quiet lately, Michaela," he said, appearing at my desk one afternoon. "Something I should know about?" I looked up from my computer with innocent eyes. "Just focused on my work, trying to follow your example of dedication." He studied my face, like he was looking for cracks in my facade. "Right, well, keep up the good work." But I could tell he was suspicious. He started walking by my desk more often, checking over my shoulder at what I was working on. During meetings, he watched me carefully when he made his usual budget excuses, looking for any sign that I might challenge him. I gave him nothing. Just polite nods and understanding smiles. "Is everything okay, Fabian?" I asked after one particularly tense meeting. "You seem stressed." He forced a laugh. "Just the usual pressures of management. Nothing for you to worry about." But his paranoia was showing. He knew something had shifted, but he couldn't figure out what. Good. Let him wonder. Paranoid people make mistakes, and I was counting on him making a big one. His growing nervousness told me I was on the right track. During our next team meeting, I decided to test the waters. Fabian was giving his usual speech about company finances when I raised my hand politely. "Sorry to interrupt, but I have a quick question." He paused, looking slightly annoyed. "Yes? Are raises still completely frozen? I'm just wondering, since our revenue is up about 30% this quarter." The room went quiet. My teammates looked surprised. I never asked direct questions like this. Fabian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That's a cute question, Michaela. But revenue and payroll budget are two different things entirely." "Of course," I said sweetly. "I was just curious about the timeline. Some of us have been here quite a while without any adjustments." Zelda was staring at her hands, avoiding eye contact with everyone. "Focus on your job performance," Fabian said, his laugh sounding forced. "Compensation discussions happen at the appropriate time through proper channels." I nodded, like I was satisfied with his answer. But everyone in the room could feel the tension. My innocent question had rattled him more than he wanted to admit. After the meeting, Tanner whispered to me, "What was that about?" "Nothing," I replied. "Just asking." But it wasn't nothing. It was the beginning of the end. The next board meeting was my opportunity. I'd been invited to present the results of my marketing campaign and discuss future strategies. Fabian sat at the table looking confident, probably thinking this was just another routine presentation. I went through my slides professionally, highlighting our success metrics and revenue growth. Then, near the end, I added something that wasn't on Fabian's agenda. "Just for clarity," I said casually, "are salary freezes still in effect company-wide?" I've been reviewing payroll data from the past 5 years, and there seem to be some discrepancies between board-approved compensation budgets and actual employee payments. The room went dead silent. Fabian's face drained of color so fast I thought he might faint. A board member leaned forward. "What payroll data are you referring to?" I kept my expression innocent and confused, like I was just asking for clarification on a minor administrative issue. "Oh, just some financial records I came across while working on budget projections for next quarter's campaigns." Fabian's hands were actually shaking now. "What discrepancies specifically?" the board chairman asked. Before I could answer, Fabian jumped in desperately. "She must be mistaken. There's obviously been some clerical error." But it was too late. The board was interested now. And Fabian looked guilty as hell. The board chairman's voice cut through the tension like a knife. "I think we need to see these payroll records, Michaela." Fabian was scrambling now. "This is highly irregular. Financial data shouldn't be discussed in." "Fabian," another board member interrupted coldly, "let her speak." I tilted my head slightly, pretending to be confused by all the drama. "I don't want to cause any problems. I just noticed some numbers that didn't match up." "What numbers?" the chairman pressed. "Well, according to the board meeting minutes I found, salary increases were approved for our department every year for the past 5 years. But according to payroll records, none of us ever received those increases." You could hear a pin drop. Fabian was sweating now, his expensive shirt sticking to his back. "She's obviously misunderstood something. The budget constraints have been well documented." "Have they?" the chairman asked sharply. "Because I'm looking at my notes right now, and I distinctly remember approving cost of living adjustments multiple times." Another board member was already pulling out his phone. "We need a full audit of departmental payroll immediately." Fabian's face had gone from pale to gray. He kept shooting glances at me like he was trying to figure out how much I knew. The answer was, I knew everything. And he was finally starting to realize it. Fabian's desperation was showing. The next day, he tried to turn the tables on me. I was called into HR for a meeting. Fabian was there with the HR director, looking grave and concerned. "Michaela," the HR director began, "there are some concerns about potential data breaches. Someone has been accessing confidential financial information without authorization." I kept my expression calm and professional. "That sounds serious." Fabian leaned forward. "We have logs showing unusual access patterns to payroll systems, access that matches your login times and locations." I nodded thoughtfully. "I see. And what exactly are you suggesting?" "We're not suggesting anything," the HR director said carefully. "We're just trying to understand how sensitive company data might have been compromised." I reached into my folder and pulled out a neat stack of documents. "I think there might be some confusion," I said politely. "I've been very careful to only access information that's part of my job responsibilities. In fact, I've documented everything." I slid the papers across the table. They were copies of every document I'd photographed, along with detailed notes about when and how I'd obtained each piece of evidence. The HR director's eyebrows rose as she scanned the documents. "Where did you get this information?" she asked quietly. I smiled innocently. "Shouldn't you already have copies of all this in your files?" That afternoon, Tanner rushed over to my desk, eyes wide with excitement. "You're not going to believe what I just heard," he whispered. "What?" I was walking past Fabian's office and he was on the phone yelling at someone. Something about covering his tracks and making problems disappear. I felt a little thrill of satisfaction, but I kept my face neutral. "That's strange." "Strange? Michaela?" It sounded like he was panicking. Like really panicking. What Tanner didn't know was that I already had everything I needed. Zelda had given me a recording she'd made months ago of Fabian bragging to a friend about his raise money Porsche and how stupid his employees were for not figuring out what he was doing. I'd been saving that recording for the right moment. "Should we tell someone?" Tanner asked. "I'm sure it's nothing," I replied calmly. But my phone was already buzzing with a text from the HR director. "Emergency meeting scheduled with Fabian tomorrow morning. Board will be present." The trap was finally snapping shut. Fabian had no idea what was waiting for him in that meeting room. He thought he was still in control, still pulling the strings. Tomorrow, he'd learn how wrong he was. The emergency meeting was held in the large conference room with the entire board present. Fabian sat at one end of the table, his lawyer beside him, looking confident but tense. I was asked to present my evidence first. I laid out everything methodically. The approved salary increases that were never implemented, the forged signatures on budget reports, the personal expenses that matched our missing wages, bank records showing suspicious deposits into Fabian's accounts. When I finished, the room was silent. The board chairman turned to Fabian. "These are serious allegations. Do you have an explanation?" Fabian sat up straighter, putting on his most sincere expression. "I absolutely deny any wrongdoing. These documents have obviously been misinterpreted or taken out of context." "What about these bank deposits?" another board member asked, pointing to the financial records. "Personal bonuses and investment income," Fabian replied smoothly, "all completely legitimate and properly documented." He was still lying, even under oath to the HR director and board. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out one final document, the forged payslips Zelda had given me, with Fabian's signature clearly faked, alongside originals that showed the real authorized amounts. I slid them across the table without saying a word. Fabian's lawyer took one look at them and muttered under his breath, "We're done here." An hour later, we were all called into the main conference room. The entire team, plus several board members and HR staff. The board chairman stood at the front of the room, his expression grim. "After a thorough investigation, we have determined that serious financial misconduct has occurred within this department," he announced. My teammates looked confused and worried. They had no idea what was happening. Effective immediately, Fabian West has been terminated from his position for theft, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. The room erupted in whispers and gasps. Fabian was escorted in by security, his face red with fury. He had to clean out his desk while everyone watched. As he passed my desk, he stopped and glared at me. "You'll regret this, Michaela," he hissed. "You have no idea what you've done." I didn't flinch. I just looked at him calmly. "I know exactly what I've done," I replied quietly. Security moved him along before he could say anything else. Through the window, I watched as his precious Porsche was being repossessed in the parking lot. A small crowd of employees had gathered to watch. The car he'd bought with our stolen money was being towed away. Justice had a certain poetry to it. After Fabian was gone, my teammates crowded around my desk, all talking at once. "What just happened?" Penny asked, still in shock. "How did you know?" Tanner demanded. Novali grabbed my arm. You did this? You're the one who exposed him?" I just smiled faintly. I didn't need to explain everything. The important thing was that it was over. "He was stealing from us," I said simply. "All those raises we never got, he kept the money for himself." Elise's eyes filled with tears. "All this time, we thought the company really couldn't afford to pay us more." 5 years, Marcelo said, shaking his head in disbelief. 5 years of struggling while he lived like a king. The HR director appeared at my desk. "Michaela, the board would like to speak with you privately." My teammates watched nervously as I followed her to the conference room. "First," the board chairman said, "we want to thank you for bringing this to our attention. Your diligence saved the company from continued liability." I nodded politely. "Second, we'd like to offer you Fabian's position as department manager, along with full back pay for all the raises you should have received." The offer hung in the air. Penny poked her head around the corner. "What are you going to do now?" she whispered. I looked around the room at all the expectant faces. I walked back to Fabian's empty office, now technically mine, and sat down at his desk. The leather chair was still warm. His expensive coffee mug sat abandoned, half full. His motivational posters about success and leadership still hung on the walls. I opened the desk drawer and pulled out a piece of company letterhead. My teammates were gathered outside the office, watching through the glass walls as I wrote. When I finished, I folded the letter carefully and placed it in the center of the desk where the new manager would find it. My resignation letter. Zelda appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. "You're leaving?" I stood up and smoothed down my skirt. "I saved all of you. I got you your back pay, your raises, your justice. But I can't stay here." "Why not?" she asked. I thought about it for a moment. "Because this place is poisoned for me now. Every day I stayed here would remind me of how they let him steal from us for 5 years." Zelda hugged me tight. "You saved us?" she whispered. I shook my head. "I saved myself. The rest of you just benefited from it." I packed my personal items into a small box and walked toward the exit. My teammates lined up in the hallway, watching me go. Some looked sad, others looked grateful, a few looked confused, but I felt lighter with every step. The elevator doors closed behind me, and I never looked back. 6 months later, I sat in my new corner office on the 30th floor, watching the city spread out below me. Director of Strategy at Morrison & Associates, a company that valued honesty, transparency, and fair compensation. My salary was double what I'd been making at my old job. My boss treated me with respect. My colleagues appreciated my work. Most importantly, I knew my worth now. My phone buzzed with a text from Zelda. "Saw your promotion announcement in the Business Journal. So proud of you." I smiled and set the phone aside. Through my office windows, I could see the building where I used to work. My old teammates were still there, finally getting the raises and recognition they deserved under new management. They'd chosen to stay and rebuild. I'd chosen to start fresh somewhere else. Both paths were valid. I picked up my coffee and walked to the window. The city stretched out endlessly in all directions, full of possibilities. People always say the best revenge is living well, but I'd learned something different. The best revenge isn't rage or getting even. It's knowing your worth and walking away from anyone who tries to steal it. I'd learned to value myself enough to leave when someone tried to make me smaller. And that lesson was worth more than any salary they could have offered me.